afraid I can't have it all. I do want to be successful in my career, and I do have this vision of myself someday doing big things. And yet I have this really tiny thing that's about to come into my life, and I have to be really faithful with that too. How do those go together?
You've got the answer inside of you. I can feel it. I can hear it. When I was thinking about resigning, my wife said, "You're replaceable at that church. You're not replaceable at home.
Mm, yeah.
Your child will help you dream again in ways you could have never imagined."
Yeah. I feel my heart wanting to be like, yes, give us a reason to just melt into the season that we're in a really good way. And so I feel my heart wanting to do that. And so I think I just need to give it a little bit more time.
Most people in their early 20s aren't lost.
They're just early.
That's right. Welcome to After the Bell, conversations for young professionals figuring out what comes next without pretending to have it all figured out. I'm your host, Nick Kaufman Mamisashvili. Welcome to my office. Sierra, how are you? It's good to see you.
I'm good. How are you, Nick?
I'm so well. I'm excited that you're here as my guest. I want to start off by you telling the people a little bit about who you are, and I will divulge a little bit more about how we know each other.
That's great. Okay. Well, I'm Sierra Glauser, and I've had different roles and identities and jobs over the last several years. And so when you invited me to come and be a guest, I was like, I need this podcast for myself. So I went to physical therapy school and became a physical therapist. And along that journey, I discovered I really like this work, but there's something more that I want to do with my life. While I was in physical therapy school, I started attending a United Methodist church. That's where I met you. And that is where I discovered that I wanted to do more in the church and in the ministry world. And I didn't quite know exactly what I wanted to do, but I just knew that there was something there for me to explore. So I started volunteering at my church. And then I participated in a leadership program through the church and got to travel to the Holy Land and just had this incredible experience. And when I came back, I said, my life can never be the same. And so now what that means is that I'm working for my church. I actually work in donor relations right now, but I'm still licensed as a physical therapist and I still volunteer in that world. And so it's a little bit messy and complicated. And I used to be really bothered by that. I wanted to be in one world or the other. And now I'm like, okay, this is just kind of where we're at and we'll see where it goes. But I'm also married. I've been married for 5 years and we're expecting a baby this fall. So lots of big, exciting changes this fall. And we have 2 cats. We live in the Kansas City area. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, first of all, you're having a baby. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
What are you feeling? How are you feeling?
Physically, I'm feeling great. I'm like right in the middle, kind of towards the end of second trimester. And I'm at the point where like, I feel like I could do this forever. And when I tell that to other people who have been pregnant in the past, they're like, oh, you just wait. Just wait. So I'm just trying to enjoy feeling really good and just soaking it all in. It was a surprise, but also we're really excited about it. And it's the first grandbaby on my side of the family. So my parents are really excited. My siblings are really excited. And it's just a fun celebratory time.
I'm thrilled for you. When you told me that news, I was just
Thank
over the
you.
moon for you. So Your due date is what, October something?
Yeah. So it could be a November baby, but regardless, they're definitely going to be dressed in like little pumpkin outfits and
Of course.
all the cheesy fall things. So yeah,
My
we're really
goodness.
excited. And since I last saw you, we found out if it's a boy or a girl, but we're not sharing. And so that's going to be really hard for me to not
My
reveal
goodness.
anything.
Well,
But yeah,
I wore both tonight. I've got pink on underneath and blue on top. So
this blue may or may not mean anything. I can't say one way or the other,
so leading
but
or misleading. This is actually the shirt I wore on the way home from the hospital with my son a year ago.
so sweet. Did
Yeah.
you pick it out intentionally or was it just something you threw
No,
in the bag and
no, it was intentional for sure. I was at Target
nice?
and I just thought this is the vibe.
It's your
Maybe I'll
dad's
post a
shirt.
picture here with like my sunglasses on and me holding the newborn and everything.
That's awesome. I love it.
Oh,
What I've discovered being in this new community of parents and motherhood, parents are so generous. There's been so many people that I've been connected to who have said, don't buy anything. We have everything. You can come and borrow anything that you want to use. Or I had a coworker who lended me her maternity clothes. So I didn't have to go out and get a completely new wardrobe. It's been really cool just to experience the generosity of people in this new season and to be welcomed into it and just to be embraced because I have no idea what I'm doing. So it's really nice when other people are like, just come here. We'll take care of you.
it is so nice and that's so wonderful. And I'm glad you have that supportive community. And you guys are going to be great parents. I know that you're just going to love this child beyond belief. The biggest thing for me was not really understanding the depth of love that could exist in the world. I mean, you get little pieces and glimpses here and there. You have so much goodness coming your way.
I'm excited about that. I feel hopeful that even if someone is listening and they're not necessarily in a season of parenthood, that there's still something that I can share that is worth the listen.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to share a nugget that people are going to take away. You very excited and driven about your career and you just changed trajectories and what you were doing. And you took a huge leap of faith, diverting from physical therapy full time. And I think you were teaching at the hospital as well. Yeah. So I want to encourage you. And I think I've said this to you before, like you've already done it. So the fact that you're stepping into a new season, it's not like you're an alien to the new season.
Yeah.
Let's process this a little bit. What are you thinking? You're going to take maternity leave and you're in donor relations at this church that has, I think, like a $35 million plus budget. Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, we found out in February that we were expecting. And let me just zoom out for a second to give you a picture of all the different hats that I'm wearing right now. So I'm working full time at this church in donor relations. And I am also the chapter president of the American Physical Therapy Association for the Kansas chapter. And I'm like a year into that term. And that's a volunteer role, but it's a pretty big time commitment. And then on top of that, I am also discerning this call to pastoral ministry. And that started a couple of years ago when I felt this call to move away from clinical physical therapy work to working for the church. So that's kind of what my life looked like when we found out we were expecting in February. And my first reaction was, I'm just going to hold on even more tightly to all of these things. I have to keep doing what I'm doing. If I give any of these things up, either that means that I have failed as a young professional or I can't handle it or I don't know. All these things came into my brain. And then slowly over time, 4 months or so, openness to the idea that things might change, will change has been expedited for me. I am now more open to like, what will this look like? Is it okay if we let things go? What is most important for us to hold on to? And why is that important? So something that I've discerned most recently, and you kind of helped me through this decision-making process, is this fall the right time to start seminary? Why does it have to be this fall? I was considering a master's of divinity. Is that really the right degree program for me? And so honestly, having a chance to kind of rethink some of those things that I was just like moving forward with, just because that was the direction I was going. It honestly gave me some permission to be honest with myself. I think I'm getting to the point where I'm evaluating every area of my life and saying, okay, if I say yes to this thing, then I'm having to say no to something else. So I want to make sure that yes is intentional and something that's meaningful. It's been good and it's been hard. There's been a lot of emotions involved. Some of it is relief.
Mhm.
Some of it is grief. Um, but it's overall been a really good process for me to do that because I've never had that in my life before where I've intentionally had to slow down and take a breather for a second.
Yeah, well, you're in a healthy place, it sounds like. Also, it sounds like you're in a discerning place, which makes sense because you have this unpredictable thing come into your life that you've never experienced. And you're right. I mean, it is going to completely rearrange your life in the best possible way. It's almost like you're saying, I'm going into all the corners of my mind, of my habits, and I'm sweeping out the cobwebs and I'm finding what's left over. You know, what's really beautiful about that is this is such a great time to do that when you're kind of nesting before giving birth because whatever is left will be an influence on your child.
Yes. Yeah.
And I had to kill parts of me that needed changed decades ago, and I think my son will be better off for it. It doesn't have to be that violent or that intense, but
Right.
I think what you're saying is like, it's a lot of reflective things. It's like, okay, I'm going to stop doing that. If you do say yes to
Yeah.
something, you do have to say no to something else. And that's hard.
Right. It's also been like, what are the things I need to stop doing? And then what are the things I need to start doing? To what am I saying yes to? I'm also working with a spiritual director right now. And if you're not familiar with spiritual direction, it is basically someone who is trained to help you listen for God in your life. And so I've been working with this spiritual director for a little over a year now. And I think you know this about me, Nick, but I tend to cry a lot, even without the pregnancy hormones. I cry whenever there are things that I need to pay attention to. So for me, I've just gotten to learn this message from my body, like, okay, we're crying, pay attention to that. So as you can imagine, whenever I meet with my spiritual director, there are usually a lot of tears in those conversations because we're talking about really meaningful things. And I usually have a lot of insights that I'm learning that just bring me to tears. Well, last week when I met with her, she said, how are you doing? And I was just saying, things are going really well right now. Pretty much the entire session. I almost made it the whole way through without crying. And she was like, wow, you just seem like you're doing really well right now. And I was like, you know, I think it's actually because I'm taking really good care of myself for the baby. And then I was like, why don't I do that just for me? Why did I have to wait until another human being depended on me to make some of these healthier choices in my life? So that got me thinking, wow, that was really revealing about some of these habits and rhythms that I have in my life. I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling emotionally healthy. And it's probably because I'm drinking lots of water, trying to move a lot through the day, eat good things. So, yeah, I was like, that's something I should do, even if there's not a human growing in my belly. So that's something I need to say yes to moving forward.
100%. Well, I'm glad that you're saying yes to it in this season because, as you know, as someone who's a former athlete, what you do decades before end up paying dividends decades later.
Yeah.
Your body physiologically adapts to certain healthful habits. So,
Yeah. And I remember you and I had a conversation maybe a year and a half ago or so. And I was really struggling in my discernment and just didn't have a lot of direction. And I was asking you, how do you help yourself move forward confidently? And you talked about physical health as an important aspect of being able to feel good about yourself. Taking good care of yourself physically definitely carries into every aspect of your life.
yeah, I mean, it releases endorphins. And all of a sudden, you're on this high. I don't know if you like this or not, but I like the next day soreness because it reminds me that I did something good for myself. And I'm
You're
like,
like,
yeah,
ooh,
get
hurts so
stronger.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good. Yeah, exactly. I love what you're saying too. I want to ask you first if you have an answer. So you're saying, why am I not doing this for myself all the time? Why does it take a human being growing inside of me to have to choose myself? Do you have an answer?
I think that's something I'm still trying to figure out. I didn't play sports competitively for my school when I was in college, but I did play on our club soccer team. I think so much of our mental, spiritual, emotional, physical well-being is tied together. And so when we're feeling not great about ourselves emotionally or spiritually, that can affect the ways that we show up physically. And so now that I am in like a really good season where I feel like I have this purpose that's driving me forward that's outside of work, it feels like that is helping me choose healthy things physically too. Now that I'm kind of doing a little bit better on this side of things, I can look back and say like, wow, I've grown a lot and I'm really glad that I've gone through that journey. It is hard when you're in it, when you're trying to figure out like, who am I? Where do I belong? What's my next step? And sometimes your physical needs and nutrition and health, all of that just kind of go down to the bottom of the priority list. I think that was the case for me.
I appreciate you sharing that insight. It seems selfish to do self-care, but then when you have that carrot dangling at the end of the stick, which in this case is a child that you want to be responsible to raise and you want to be proud of the way you've raised them, I think it feels self-full because you're not just making a healthy version of you that you can post on Instagram. You are creating a family that you can defend and protect and lead and mentor and push out into the world to go bless everybody wherever they go. I've always been healthy and fit and used my physical fitness to be healthy. And I think that's one of the reasons I was able to give you that advice. But having a child, something else clicked in me. I think maybe this is a man thing, but I feel like,
Well, say it and I'll tell you if it's a man thing.
yeah, please take me to task. So I've noticed when I had a kid, I was expecting my wife to just like raise him. And I was just there as a supporting cast member. And that included simple things like chores and dishes and random things.
Yeah.
And as soon as my son was born, I was just like, what kind of man, what kind of father do I want him to see? I want him to see a man who picks up after everyone and never gets thanked for it. That's not the point. The point is to do the right thing because it's the right thing. That's called integrity. That's what I want my son to emulate. High
Yeah.
integrity. And in order for him to repeat that, I have to model it.
Yeah.
If his mom's the only one modeling it, he's not going to see any man modeling it for years until he gets out of the house. And that's going to be years. So I don't know. Is it a man thing?
Parts of that probably were a man thing. Oh, things are just going to happen, right? But obviously, you and Ani have a great partnership. I know you have great communication. So I don't know what you said though about integrity and doing something because it's the right thing, even when no one is watching you. As I was approaching my 30th birthday, I had no idea that a baby would be on the horizon in the next year or so, but I signed up for a half marathon last year because I knew, okay, I'm going to be turning 30. Like, I really want to take better care of myself. And that was a moment for me where I was like, the days of my youth are not going to carry me forward anymore. I must make this decision to like do it for me. And so I think that kind of like kickstarted things. And then once we found out we were having a baby, I was like, okay, yeah, this is really, really important because now someone is going to be watching. One of my biggest pet peeves is when parents are like, just do it because I told you so, but the parent isn't also doing it. I want to be the kind of person who is living out the thing that I'm asking other people to do. And be very thoughtful and intentional about who we are and the decisions we're making.
Continue along that path. It will continue to serve you.
I always hear from parents who have been parents for a long time. They're like, there's no amount of books that will prepare you for this. I know that, but I still am learning some things. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay, but there's a difference between not reading any books
That's true.
and reading 100 books.
That's true. So I'm reading a handful of books, knowing that it can't fully prepare me, but it will prepare me for the basics.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm reading these books and I'm getting a glimpse of how hard parenthood is. And it helps me have grace for parents who, just have really hard seasons where sometimes all you can do is just give your kid an iPad and you just need a break for a little bit. So I think it's naive for me to say, I will never do that. There are days that I've had a really long day and I just scroll on my phone for a little bit. And do I want my child to see that behavior? I'll be real. They might at some point. I'm not going to be perfect.
They
But
will.
also, do I even know why I'm doing that? Or is this behavior controlling me? So yeah, it's been making me think a lot about like, that's an interesting behavior that I'm doing. Wonder why I'm doing that.
That was one of the big things that I had to kick was a social media addiction. When my son was first born, I had this social media addiction, and even hours after he was born, I just kept picking up my phone. There was no one bothering me. They knew I was at the hospital. He just kept picking it up every 5 minutes, and I've got this brand new thing right in front of me that now I'm entrusted with. And my whole world was just in this whirlwind, and it was so exciting. And it wasn't that I wasn't wanting to be present and be there. It was just that I was addicted to this thing. People like to give a lot of advice, and a lot of the advice is very black and white. It's like there's not enough parental books, not even one, to teach you anything about parenthood. And it's just not true. I watched all these pediatricians talk professionally about stop worrying about this, or if you're worried about this, it's understandable, but here's the percentage of how often that actually comes. It's all about making informed choices. So you're reading information, you're gathering research, best practices, and then at the end of the day, you get to decide what kind of parent you want to be and what kind of practices you want to implement. Yes, you will scroll on your phone when you're tired and exhausted from the day because children are exhausting, especially at the beginning when they're pooping 12 times a day. I mean, it's insane. And it's not like how my son goes to the bathroom now, which is like all organized and I just have to like wipe it up. It's like they wait until the diaper opens to go on you or go across the room.
Wow.
It's a lot. Anyway, we'll cut all that out. But here, let me say this. There is an answer to parenting. There is an answer. And the answer is love. The answer to the equation of parenting and trying to figure out A plus B equals C is love.
Yeah.
It's always love. So the more nuanced and the deeper understanding you can have about love and how far love will go and testing the limits to see what the ceiling on love actually is, that's the answer. It's always the answer.
It's really good. That's really, really good. As I'm learning more about like the labor and delivery process, it's really scary to me. I get really anxious about like medical procedures, medical environment, which is a little ironic because I worked in a hospital for a while, but it's kind of scary to think about all the what ifs. But even in those scary moments, thinking about this little tiny thing being born into love, no matter how that happens, that is something that provides some encouragement through the process.
It should, yeah. And this creature was created out of love. This creature will be wrapped in love, not just by you and Neil, but your families and your friends. So,
yeah. We're so excited.
It's awesome. And someday they'll tell you, I love you for the first time. If you're well loved and you love well, you will succeed in overcoming whatever problem arises for you. It does not mean that there will not be heartbreak. And I pray the heartbreak is minimized for you guys as much as possible. And for me, I think about some of my parents who lost their kids, when I was
Mm.
mentoring them, and multiple times a year think about them. I
Yeah.
just can't imagine, you know?
Yeah. At the beginning, my fear of loss was really high.
Yeah.
I had a friend who had experienced that and then had gone on to have beautiful babies and they were totally healthy. And she just encouraged me and said, you just have to love your baby right now. Like
Yeah.
you just have to be present. And I think again, regardless of, what season of life you're in, I, I thought that was really good advice. You can't think so far ahead that you forget we're just right here, right now, and just be here. And
Just be here. It's brilliant.
tomorrow will come. And
Yep.
so don't worry too much about that. Just be right here. I'm sure you always have to remember that no matter how old your kids are.
Yeah, I have two things for you. So, one, that's interesting from your friend. That's heartbreaking. And I'm sorry to hear that. My wife's one of her really good friends lost a kid when her in laws were watching them.
Oh my gosh.
And they were like moving states. The kid died while they were in their
Oh my
care.
gosh.
They were just a couple months old. Tragic. So she came and stayed with us for like a week and a half at our house, just feeling completely lost. We cared for her. And then my wife just told me like 3 days ago that she's having triplets,
My gosh.
but
Oh,
it's wild. But she also
wow.
has another healthy kid. So she'll have four. She was going to go from 1 to 4.
Wow.
Absolutely wild. But
Wow.
then the other day, my son and I were leaving worship service, and there was this woman with her 2 kids on the side of the street. They were like 4 and 7. And she's like, my daughter peed herself. Look. And she showed me, can you take us to Target so we can get a change of things? We're homeless. We're like in a home in the Bronx. I was like, yeah, let's go. So they're getting all excited. And then we get in there. And she's totally unregulated, yelling at her kids. So we get in the elevator and she's calling her son selfish. The boy looks up at me and he goes, I think I'm going to throw up. Just the anxiety of his mom screaming at him in public and not knowing what to do. He wants to get this thing, but she won't let him because they can't afford it. And like, I'm not going to pay $150 or something. It's so hard to understand how you can go from worrying about whether they're going to wake up when they're a couple months old or even days old, or even now, my son's over a year old and I still worry about it, to creating such a scene for your kid that they feel like they're going to throw up. They're nauseous from the embarrassment of their parent ridiculing them in public.
Yeah.
And I know it's a journey. But again, like, if you don't figure out how to love early, it can be so much harder to love late.
Yeah.
Just like any
Yeah.
other habit, love is a habit.
And I had mentioned this earlier about how like learning more about this journey is helping me have grace for people. And I'm not saying you don't have grace for this person. You are one of the most grace-filled people I know. But thinking about parenting someone is helping me see the ways that my parents parented me. I know there are things I'm not going to get right. And I think you said this earlier about humility. I'm actually really excited to say to my child for the first time, like, hey, I'm really sorry. I messed up. I don't know when that will be. Probably not until they're like 35, at least. I'll get everything right until then. But yeah, you don't want your child growing up thinking that all adults are right just because
Mm,
they're grown-ups.
yeah. Well, don't hold your breath for making it to 35. Might happen early. It's 35 months. So which is more challenging? Transitioning to motherhood and growing a human, or transitioning from physical therapy to ministry nonprofit life?
Honestly, transitioning from physical therapy to nonprofit ministry life. And I kind of wonder if I had the life experiences that I've had since I made that transition, if that is what's preparing me to make this transition even more smoothly. Remember when I made the decision, okay, I'm going to quit my job in physical therapy and I am going to work at the church. The narrative in my head at the time was like, you need to ask your parents for permission for
Mm.
this. And I was so nervous. I cried. Um, you already know I cry a lot, but this was like I'm scared cry. I'm scared of what you're going to think of me. And at the time I guess that was only like 3 to 4 years ago at this point, but still a lot of life can happen in 3 to 4 years. And so I think if I were to make a big and bold transition like that now, I think I would feel less like I needed to ask for permission and more like, this is the decision I've made. And so making a transition to motherhood feels less scary.
I remember on the Holy Land trip, we were sitting at this picnic table in this little store, and you and Neil were asking me about my role, and I was telling you guys about how I decided to be a minister of the common good. I then asked you guys about your story and what you wanted to do. Did you guys have a sense that you were both running down a path that you felt called to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, we met in physical therapy school and our last names were next to each other in the alphabet. So we were paired together for a lot of group projects. And so we became friends first. And Neil was actually the person who invited me to this church for the very first time. And so I think it started out as this common pursuit of similar values and similar beliefs in our faith. We started getting coffee together after every church service on Sundays. And so as we were getting to know one another, we were growing in our faith, and what we were learning was also challenging our values in our lives. And so that was all kind of like mingled together. I think at the time it felt like, wow, we are both experiencing the exact same call to ministry, and it looks exactly the same for both of us. And now that we're like a few years away from that, we both have very different calls. And that's pretty cool to explore. I think at the beginning when I was comparing my journey against his, and I thought we're supposed to be like exactly the same and doing the same thing together, it felt really unfair that
Mm-hmm.
things were progressing in a certain way for him, but not for me. And then I realized these are just totally different calls and they're being expressed in different ways. And even now I'm still having new insights about how God is calling me in my life. And it looks totally different than how Neil is being called. So I think it just so happened that it was kind of discovered about the same time, but now we're moving in different directions just in terms of our understanding of how God is calling each of us. I think I have a better understanding of where and how God has called us.
I love that. I want to nuance something for a second. So I believe everyone is called to be a steward of God's goodness in the world, to pursue justice and compassion for everyone around you, to be a good neighbor, to demonstrate love, patience, kindness, all the fruits of the Spirit. Also, some ministers of the common good, which everyone has been called to, are set apart for specific, maybe ordained or pastoral specific ministry. So Neil has been set apart for something. He's pursued the license of a local pastor. And I think he's probably going to move further down the line.
Yeah.
So you might not be set apart. It doesn't mean you're not called, and it doesn't mean you're less than. It just means you're taking a different path and that God has a different calling upon your life to lead in a way that looks different than what your husband's path looks like. Have you given much thought to that idea?
Yeah. In the United Methodist Church that we're a part of, there is a process to explore pastoral ministry, and it really is meant to be a very affirming process. But there's interviews and there's specific questions you have to prepare for. In my very first interview, the committee that was interviewing me were asking questions, and I was requesting to be licensed as a local pastor, and the result they gave me was no. I was devastated. I was like, God, you called me to this. Why would I get a no if this is what you wanted me to do? The committee said, take a year, discern, and come back next year. And that no was honestly one of the best answers I ever could have gotten, because if I'm being honest, most of my life, I've just gotten what I've wanted, and I've been pretty successful at the things that I've gone for. And this was the first time that people around me said, we're not saying you don't have gifts for this, or this isn't the right thing, but we want you to think about this a little bit more. And so I came back and interviewed again this past fall. And I said, you know what? I just want some more time to think. And they were like, okay, great. So yeah, now I'm really glad that I didn't go down that path that I was originally requesting. Because since then I've discerned that I don't think that is the right path for me. As I mentioned, I am involved in my physical therapy association, and that's just in a volunteer capacity, but it also involves advocacy and working with legislators to advocate for changes to healthcare access and all those amazing things. And I've discovered I really, really like that. And that actually aligns more with the calling of a deacon in the United Methodist Church. The deacon is seen as the bridge between the church and the world. So that's kind of like in the back of my mind right now. But I also don't feel like I need to go for it right now. With the baby coming, I'm like, you know what? Let's just sit with this for a little bit. It's going to be okay. I was talking with a friend earlier today, and I was like, even if I didn't move forward with any career or school stuff for 5 more years, I would only be 35. That's still time for like an entire career. And I could pick a new career and do that for 20 years, and I would still have time to do something totally different. And so I think that is just helping me chill out a little bit and relax. I don't think God calls us to a specific job. Like you're saying, God calls everyone to be the people that God created us to be. And so I think that I can live out my calling as a parent. I can live out my calling when I'm on maternity leave. I can live out my calling regardless of what's happening with my job.
Slowing down is a new season. God has lined it all up. I'm excited for you. And I can say that because it happened for me too. I decided to leave the church that you're working for and focusing on my family. And, I'm looking at social media posts of my mentors that I went out and recruited who are celebrating the first senior class that I started with, and they're all graduating and they're being celebrated. And, my heart aches because I wanted to be there for them and for that. And I'm sure people feel certain ways about me not being around. And yeah, it hurts. But at the same time, I wouldn't change my decision because I'm investing in my family. I have learned so much about myself from being a parent, not just how to be present, but also just how to endure boredom. I think we had a conversation a couple of times about like how
We
to be
did.
bored. It's something I learned as
Yes,
a kid, but like I've had to relearn it because I'm addicted to screens.
totally. It's definitely preparing me to be on the
Mm,
lookout for what are those things that I'm going to learn
mm,
from this little baby. So I'm excited about that. But yes,
yeah.
I will need to be okay with boredom. I was reflecting for our conversations when we talked several conversations ago. You recommended a song. I don't remember the artist, but it's called Be a Kid Again. Does that sound right?
Yes, it's like
PJ
PJ
Morton?
Morton. Yeah.
Yes. And you were like, think back to who you were as a kid, the little quirks you had, the things you were interested in. That tells you something about who you still are.
Mm.
That was really helpful for me as I was in the thick of what job do I do? What's the perfect job for me? Now I'm starting to realize there is no perfect job out there. What did I keep going back to as a kid? And what did my parents always say? Like, oh, you always used to do this or you loved doing that. Could I get back to doing some of those things now as an adult? And will that tell me something about who I am? So I think for me, when I turned 30 last year, that was one of the reasons I signed up to do a half marathon because I did sports as a kid. I was like, you know, that was something I really enjoyed and helped me connect with myself again. So I appreciated that advice that you gave me
Wow.
and that song. It's a good song.
It is a good song. I also didn't know what to do with my athleticism. So I started to run marathons as well. And I did that for like 4 years or something. And then it was just one day, it was just enough. I was just like satisfied,
That's
you
good.
know? I'll
Yeah.
go find something else. Now I play futsal every Thursday night in the basement of a church in Midtown. And
That's
it
awesome.
is, I feel like I'm a better soccer player now than I ever have been, which
Wow.
might be the competition, might be me just thinking too highly of myself. But like literally some of the things that I'm doing, I'm like, I never would have taken that risk
Yeah.
on defense, trying to nutmeg a guy on defense. Like I never would have done that. I would only do that on offense because if I lose the ball and I get scored on, I think some of it too is like the pressure's off. It doesn't matter. It all gets wiped away clean at the end of the day. There's no state championship on the line.
Yeah. You're just competing against yourself, which
Yeah.
I think that was the heart of what I loved about sports
Yeah.
playing when I was younger. And then, of course, it's fun to be competitive and, have something you're working towards, like a state championship or winning tournaments. But now, as a grown up, when you're playing just to play the game and you're just playing against yourself, really, that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just takes the pressure away. And I think what I loved about half marathons is I had people around me that were running, but we all started at different times. So you never really know, like, am I winning or are you winning? It wasn't really about that. It was like, am I winning against myself? Am I
Mm,
beating my time that I had set for myself?
yeah.
And I really
PR.
liked that. That was really cool.
That is cool. Although I always choose somebody like 100 yards in front of me. I'm going to beat that person right
You're my
there.
person. Yeah.
And then I pass them and then I go to the next person. I'm like, you're next, you know? But
I think I
yeah,
saw someone like you at the race. I was like,
it was me.
hey, yeah, you passed
Yeah,
me.
you might have been one of my people I chose. No, just kidding. You're probably faster than me. So tell me a little bit, like, have you adapted what you're talking about in sports into career?
Hmm.
Like, is the worry off? Are you a little more free with thinking about, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm going to be led into something and I'm going to use my gifts and I have years to do it here and I can do something else here for these years.
Yeah. I think when I'm out of the situation, like I'm having this conversation now, I'm like, yeah, it is. But then when I'm in those conversations at work, I find myself being like, I gotta make sure I'm there. Deep down, I don't want to miss out.
Mm,
I felt this way when I was in physical therapy education too. Like, I don't want to miss out on anything. I want to be considered for every opportunity. And now that I'm thinking about taking a step back, saying no to some things, there is part of me that's like, oh yeah, that's great. That's so good that we're doing that. And then there is another part of me that is like, well, that means you're not going to be considered for some opportunities. That means that you are going to miss out on some things. And that is kind of hard for me. Not going to lie. I think that's one of the things that brings a feeling of grief a little bit because I thought I was going to be the person that like just keeps climbing. I think I'm at a place where that's going to have to be the case and we're going to have to be okay with it. And I know that it is going to be okay. But right now, there's still a little part of my heart that's like, you don't get to be on the field when they're playing the game if you say no to things. And
Yeah.
It's a little hard.
Yeah, I can totally relate. You will have times where it will resurface. You're going to question, did I make the right choice? Am I doing the right thing? How do I streamline myself back into the thick of being needed? I mean, really
Yes.
comes down to being needed, being reliable for people, being responsible for big ticket items. It's all about meaning making. You will make new meaning by being a mother. It won't replace a career. It just won't. They're just not congruent. So just don't get those confused. Pastor Adam describes that church as a church for thinking people, people who are not going to leave their intellect at the door, who can come and scrutinize scripture, scrutinize the experience, the tradition. Ultimately, you're describing FOMO, fear of missing out. They don't want to miss out on his dream because they have started to internalize it. I think this happened during the last conversation we had. Pastor Adams running for Senate in Kansas, and he's doing a great job. My prediction is that he's going to win, which is exciting. You heard it here first. He he's doing his best to pass the torch, you know, and he's stepping away from that spotlight. And having been with him in Dallas a few months ago at this leadership thing, he's struggling with it. He wants to be present for everything, especially this church. It feeds people. It helps people in addiction recovery. I've been there serving the homeless and meeting with people who are contemplating suicide. It runs so deep, and he is core to all those experiences that people are having. And like I think we had talked about, he makes you believe anything is possible. He makes you believe that your ceiling is higher than it actually is. And that's the kind of leader people want to be around.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, especially when you're young, it's hard to reckon with this. You realize you have limits, and they don't have to be self-imposed. You continue to dream, you can continue to push, because you need to find out just how limited you are and where your boundaries really lie. But you do have them, and that's really hard to come to terms with. But there are people who can help make a way for you that God has put along different points on the journey, and you need them to open a door into a future. And when you think about like how you transitioned from physical therapy into nonprofit work, you did have people that opened those doors. Is there another way to think about a career trajectory other than climbing a ladder?
Yeah, I think that's the model that I'm trying to recreate in my head, because I've heard it. When I was in physical therapy school, our last year is all clinical work. And Neil and I, we were engaged for that last year of school. And it was also 2020 into 2021. So it was like during COVID, the world was just completely different. And we were in the clinic full time without getting paid. And we were paying to be students. Anyways, it was a crazy time. But we would call each other at the end of every day and we would say, how many steps forward did you take today? And it was never in the sense of like, are you climbing the ladder? It was, hey, even if you made a mistake with a patient today or you got an answer wrong, did you take a step forward because you learned something from that? And so for me, I'm trying to think about it in that way.
Yeah. You know, I think it's a little challenging being inside of Resurrection because it is almost 600 employees
Mhm.
and like 30 pastors, I think. I'm going to give it more thought to think about how young professionals can think about career trajectory in ways that don't involve a hierarchical ladder.
Young adult ministry was something I did. My title was program director. I did that for 2 years at our church. And for the last like 6 months or so of that role, I started discerning I have different gifts and strengths that might be better utilized in a different role or in a different ministry area. So I started looking at other opportunities, and that's when I discovered this role in donor relations. It is technically a step down on the organizational chart.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we're looking at it from a ladder perspective, it definitely was not a move up. But
Yeah.
for me, I felt like it was a move where I was actually being more me
Hmm.
and saying yes to something that aligned more with my gifts and my strengths. I don't know what construction equipment that represents. If it's not a ladder, I don't know what that
A
is.
scaffold.
But yeah, a scaffold. But for me, it was like, okay, it's not even about, am I moving up in the organization, or is my title better? Is my salary better? For me, it was really important to choose a role that aligned more with me. I know that's not the case for everyone. That was the same thing from physical therapy to ministry.
Hmm.
It was a definite pay cut for sure. And so that wasn't really what determined whether I was moving forward or succeeding.
I think that's good reflection. I- and the reason I say that is because you might be thinking, I took a pay cut, and then I took another pay cut, and I took a position demotion and then a title demotion. Next, I'm going to be demoted into being a parent. You know what I mean?
Diaper duty.
But like, it's just not, it's not helpful,
Yeah.
you know? It doesn't serve you in any way. And so I would encourage you to just remove that altogether. I don't have like a system for removing it, but that would be my encouragement. And then the other thing is like, you said throughout your life, you have stepped through doors that opened and it just kept opening and you just weren't really told no. And now in all three situations being three transitions, transitioning from physical therapy into nonprofit work, that was your decision, right? You weren't told no. You were told yes. And you stepped through that door because it did open for you, right? And then
Hmm.
from the nonprofit young adult part with the donor relations, that was a point where you didn't feel aligned any longer. You made that decision. No one was telling you no. So that was you saying yes to, I need a change, right? And then the third one is like, you got pregnant and then you're like, I'm saying yes to motherhood, to parenthood.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you're giving up your donor relations job. I'm just saying all three of those were not no's, they were yeses.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have courage. And when you make a decision and you stick with your decision, or the decision sticks with you,
Yeah.
there will be times where you're going to second guess yourself and you're going to question whether it's the right choice. And you're probably going to be mad at yourself from time to time. You're going to wonder, what if? But again, it's not helpful. What is
Mhm.
helpful is going, how can I use my gifts, my goodness, my attention to be the best at this job in this season? And I know that that's your personality, and I know that you can give it your all. And just because you say yes and it's like a downshift in title or it's a career change or monetary value, it doesn't make you any less valuable.
Yeah. There was a question that you had given me ahead of time just to like get me thinking a little bit. You said, what are you afraid won't work out? I said, I'm afraid I can't have it all. I do want to be successful in my career, and I do have this vision of myself someday doing big things. And yet I have this really tiny thing that's about to come into my life, and I have to be really faithful with that too. How do those go together?
You've got the answer inside of you. I can feel it. I can hear it. When I was thinking about resigning from Resurrection, my wife said, "You're replaceable at that church." And when she first said it, I was pretty upset by it. I was like, you don't understand. Like, you're not there every day and you don't know how much I mean to people. And what kind of relationships I have and how deep my care goes. And then she said it to me again like a month later or so when I was getting closer to resigning. And then I got it because she said, "You're replaceable at that church. You're not replaceable at home."
Mm.
So I think rather than thinking of it as like I'm grieving the loss of a trajectory, of an expectation, of a dream, I'm saying yes to the one arena of life where it means more than everything else combined.
Yeah.
There's so much dream making that will come out of it. And your child will also help you dream again in ways you could have never imagined.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I think once I'm in it, I'll I'll get it. I feel my heart wanting to be like, yes, give us a reason to just melt into the season that we're in a really good way. And so I feel my heart wanting to do that. And so I think I just need to give it a little bit more time.
You're all in. I mean, your heart's in the right place. Be present. Find ways to be present every day, every week. How big is the baby now? Like, is it a cucumber?
It's a carrot, a big carrot or a cauliflower, depending on what app you look at and where you buy your groceries.
Sort of very
So
different. Yeah.
I know, like, where are you getting your carrots and cauliflower?
From someone who's a few months from your biggest transition ever. Like, do you have any encouragement for young adults, young professionals who maybe are also navigating transitions?
Yes, I wrote something down. So let me get my notes because I didn't want to forget it. What's that song? I think it's called Vienna by Billy Joel.
Yeah.
So there's a line, slow down, you're doing fine. I love that. I will put that song on when I'm driving home from work or driving to somewhere and I'll just blast it. And I'm like, yes, we are doing fine. Slow down. It's okay. So that is one thing I would say. And then I think the biggest thing I'm learning, just like I mentioned, is like maybe this season of transition or waiting or whatever it is might be preparing you for what's next. You can never fully know what's next. I had a mentor who, when I was considering making a transition into ministry, she said, God only lights like the next little step for us. I think it's a psalm that says, your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. The lamp only lights the next little bit in front of you. So maybe you're being prepared for something you just can't see quite yet. So slow down. You're doing fine. It'll all be okay.
Wonderfully said. I think that is wonderful encouragement for young professionals out there. And I want to say to all the young professionals listening, if you're looking for a mentor like myself or that Sierra just spoke of, you can stop because you found one in me. You can check me out on my website, afterthebellnyc.com. I would love to have a little introductory call with you, see if maybe I'm the right fit to be a mentor, or see if I can just guide you in a decision that you're making, perhaps about transition. Sierra, thank you so much for this time. It's been a pleasure to reconnect. I want to connect with you again, maybe in like 6 weeks when you're very close to giving birth to this child. I'm really excited for you. And I want to just kind of process like where you're at in your transition moment and see where your heart's at.
That sounds great. Where my heart's at, where my lungs and stomach, they'll all be like up here and I'll be like,
Your
hi,
throat.
Nick. How are you doing? So that's where I'll be in 6 weeks, probably.
It sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. Sierra, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure. And cheers, everybody.